Hello and thanks for joining us. This is the World News at 12 on Voice of the People 90.3 FM. I am Solomon of FM First Out Top Stories. Ex-INEC Chairman Mahmood Yakub says Bivas works offline on election day. Results can be transmitted once network is available. Kwankwasiya movement, APC, NNPP react to sanction of Mieti Allah Kwankwaso Fulani militia in US bill. 4 kidnapped victims regain freedom in Kwara. Senator Natasha and committee chair clash at Jakarta Steel budget defense. On the international scene, the police identify 18-year-old suspect in Canada school shooting. And in sport, outrage as World Cup 2026 ticket hits $143,000 on FIFA's platform. Those are our headlines. Details coming up in just a moment. First on the news, the former chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission INEC, Mahmood Yakub, has clarified that the bimodal voter accreditation system BVAS used during elections does not require internet connectivity to function at polling unit. In a video, Yakub explained that the device operates offline on election day, addressing concerns over network challenges that have trailed past electoral exercises. He stated that the machine on election day does not require internet for upload if it works offline. According to him, internet connectivity only becomes necessary at the stage of transmitting results, particularly the scanned images of polling units' result sheets. He said, and I quote, "When it comes to transmission of results, that's where it needs a network. But if there is no network in the immediate vicinity, the scanned image of polling unit level result, which is taken using BVAS, will be transmitted as soon as the staff move from engaging telecommunications providers to address areas with weak or no network coverage, often referred to as blind spots." The clarification comes amid ongoing public debate over the reliability of technology deployed in Nigeria's electoral process, particularly regarding the electronic transmission of results. INEC had introduced the BVAS to enhance transparency and credibility in elections by accrediting voters by marked controversy and litigation. Yakub's remarks underscore the Commission's position to introduce the bill to the U.S. Congress seeking to impose sanctions on former Kano State Governor Rabiu Kwankwaso, the Mieti Allah Cattle Breeders Association of Nigeria (MACBAN), and Mieti Allah Kautal Hore for alleged violations of religious freedom. The bill, Nigeria Religious Freedom and Accountability Act of 2026, was introduced by Chris Smith, Riley Moore, Brian Mast, Mario Diaz-Balart, and Bill Huzanga. Details of the bill, which was posted on the U.S. Congress website, claimed that Kwankwaso was one of the individuals contributing to systemic religious persecution of Christians that has persisted in Nigeria. If the proposed legislation introduced to Congress becomes law, the Department of State and Treasury are expected to impose sanctions, including a visa ban and asset freeze on individuals or entities responsible for severe religious freedom violations in Nigeria. Others targeted included those the bill described as Fulani ethnic nomad militia in Nigeria. Some of the provisions of the proposed legislation mandate the Secretary of State to determine whether certain Fulani ethnic militias in Nigeria qualify as a foreign terrorist organization. The move came months after U.S. President Donald Trump redesignated Nigeria as a country of particular concern, CPC, over what he described as a persecution of Christians in the West African nation, a development the sponsors of the bill said was justified. But the Nigerian authorities have denied claims of persecution, saying they respect all religions. Meanwhile, the Kwankwasia movement has formally rejected a move by the United States lawmakers to blacklist its leader, Senator Rabiu Musa Kwankwaso, over alleged severe religious freedom violations in Nigeria. In a swift reaction on Thursday, the movement described the inclusion of a former Kano State governor's name as unfounded and politically motivated, demanding its immediate removal from the proposed legislation. The movement specifically addressed claims made by U.S. Rep. Riley Moore, one of the bill's sponsors, who reportedly linked Kwankwaso to religious extremism due to the implementation of Sharia law during his tenure as governor. Defending the record, the group argued that Sharia-based legal systems in northern Nigeria were constitutional development not unique to Kano. The group said Kwankwaso, a former Deputy Speaker of the House of Representatives, two-time Governor of Kano State, Minister of Defense, and Senator, has never been indicted, prosecuted, or credibly accused of religious persecution, extremism, or human rights violations. The movement argued that the development of Sharia-based legal systems in parts of northern Nigeria was carried out within constitutional provisions and was not in the initiative of any single individual. It added that singling out Kwankwaso, while similar constitutional arrangements exist in several states, raises serious questions about the basis, consistency, and evidentiary standard behind such a recommendation. Similarly, the All Progressives Congress APC and the New Nigeria People's Party NNPP have rejected the proposed visa bans and asset freezes recommended by the United States lawmakers against ex-Kano State Governor Rabiu Kwankwaso, the Miyetti Allah Cattle Breeders Association of Nigeria, and the Miyetti Allah Kautal Hore over alleged violations of religious freedoms in Nigeria. The APC criticized the proposed sanctions, insisting that the allegations alone could not justify curtailing Kwankwaso's freedom of movement without a fair hearing and due process. APC Director of Publicity Bala Ibrahim described the United States as a symbol of democracy and cautioned its government against taking action solely based on allegations. He stated that whatever the allegation against Kwankwaso and others is, it remains an allegation until it is proven. The NNPP, on the other hand, described the planned censure of its national leader as blackmail. At the press conference in Abuja, the opposition party expressed shock over the inclusion of Kwankwaso in the proposed sanctions list, while dismissing any suggestions that he was responsible for religious freedoms violations. The National Publicity Secretary of the party, Ladipo Johnson, stated that they see this development as a contrived action against an innocent man who clearly has no relationship with religious fundamentalism in Nigeria. NNPP insisted that Kwankwaso's record is there in the public domain, either in public office or in private life, and it is advisable for people to investigate such things properly before reaching such conclusions. Kano State, under Kwankwaso's leadership, implemented the Islamic legal code, joining other northern states such as Zamfara, Sokoto, Katsina, Yobe, Jigawa, and Borno. The four people kidnapped along the Omo Aran Sanlu Isin Road in Kwara State on January 5, 2026 have regained their freedom. It was gathered that the abductees were released on Wednesday. A security source who confirmed their release said the released individuals are receiving treatment in various hospitals in Ilori and Amuaran, respectively. However, in another twist of events, one person was killed and another kidnapped on Tuesday evening along the Correctional Center Road. Residents of San Luis and neighboring communities are in panicking mood as a result of which some schools have closed down. In another development, a suspected bandit disguised as a beggar was arrested in Igbaja, a fellow Dun local government area of the state. Intelligence reports indicated that some bandits fled Baba Songo after realizing that their informants posing as beggars were being tracked while roaming towns and villages across Kwara South. It is further disclosed that the bandits hibernating in Baba Songo and Orago were spread into other parts of the senatorial district using disguises to avoid detection. Tempers flared on Wednesday at the budget defense session of the Ministry of Steel Development as Senator Natasha Akpotiuduaghan PDP Kogi Central engaged in a heated exchange with the chairman of the Senate committee overseeing the ministry, Patrick Ndubweze, following nearly 4 hours of deliberations. The session, which focused largely on the state of the Ajakuta Steel Company and several memoranda of understanding MOUs entered into by the ministry, grew tense after prolonged questioning by members of the committee. Trouble began when Senator Akpotiuduaghan continued her line of inquiry after hours of scrutiny, pressing ministry officials for further clarifications. As discussions stretched on, Senator Ndubweze moved to bring the session to a close, noting that the Kogi Central lawmaker had spoken extensively and indicating his intention to wrap up proceedings. The decision sparked a sharp reaction from Akpotiuduaghan, who objected to the move, leading to a brief but tense standoff between the two lawmakers. The chairman, however, insisted that she could reserve her questions for the investigative hearing before hitting the gavel. Akpotiuduaghan had questioned the transparency and structure of agreements entered into by the ministry. The lawmaker also accused the ministry of failing to meaningfully engage her as a representative of the host community. Take a listen.
Please, do you mind if I do so?
Distinguished, let us call it a
No, I'd
close
like
for
to,
the
please,
minister.
it's very important.
When we
please.
come for investigative
No,
hearing,
Honorable
we invite
Minister,
them.
please, I'd like to say
I think,
this.
Mr. Minister,
No, please, do not hit the gavel. I still have something to say, and I think you should respect me enough. Please don't do that.
I've given you respect.
No, that's not it.
Mr. Minister, your
Mr.
time
Chairman.
is up. Thank you.
Then that's fine.
You are
I
to
think
wait.
you've
Don't go
disrespected
with
me
it.
more than enough.
No.
On this, no, you can't do this to me. You can't. You spoke
It's
about
okay.
me enough to allow me to speak. I have something very vital to interface with the minister. And it doesn't matter if I've spoken once or twice. This is an interactive session. And you agreed that we have not met with the minister enough. Only God knows when next we are going to meet with him as a committee.
You're still on to the World News at 12 right here on Voice of the People 90.3 FM. Joining me to analyze our news item is Tunde Kolawole, a legal practitioner and current affairs analyst. Barrister Kolawole, thank you very much for joining us on the news at 12.
Thanks for having me, my brother, and a beautiful afternoon to all the good people of Lagos State.
A beautiful
and
afternoon
and all the world for listening to us this afternoon.
So the first on our news item is and then that's in places where there are no internet connection, those results can still be uploaded, and then on the way to collection center when there is proper network, they will get internet, and then whatever has been uploaded after it has been signed by the election officer and the different political party agents, it will go to the IREV. You know, it will go through. Now, considering former chairman, the former INEC chairman, is even commenting based on his experience in the last election, which was like some, 2, 3, 4 years ago. It would be expected that between that time and now, some remote places that don't have internet connection should have internet connection in 2027. What's your reaction to this?
Well, that is a very great or big revelation from the former INEC chairman. which in my humble opinion is highly commendable. For a man who has just been nominated as an ambassador, to have the courage to come out that openly and forthrightly that the Bivas doesn't even require internet connectivity before it can function. I think we should commend them for that. The second one is that as I was reading the papers this morning, Omoyele Sowore has also come out to say that the president or the incumbent INEC chairman had a meeting with them, and that the man told them that the Indians were asking them, why are we using Bivas and water by Bivas technology when we could have adopted automated voting and then transmission of results like they do in India? That about 900 million people vote in India when they do have their elections, and that everything is transmitted electronically and what have you. And he has advised the Nigerian people or told them that the Bivas is an obsolete technology, and that they should go for a more modern, precise, and then good and straightforward technology. So with this coming from Yakub, he now gives a lie to the conclusion of the Senate, or to the position of the Senate, and the executive arm of government, that it is because of the internet connectivity and what have you that we cannot use we cannot do electronic transmission of results. Somebody else has also come out openly before even the Yakubu thing to say, no, you don't need any internet connectivity to be able to do electronic transmission of results. And I also remember that even Mr. Rotimi Amechi, when he attended the demonstration at the National Assembly and what have you, he came out also openly to say, look, some of these claims that the Senate and the Executive of Government are making are really not genuine. They may be lies and what have you. Also remember that President Muhammadu Buhari, when he was in there, tactically rejected the signing of one of the amended Electoral Act into law, claiming that it was too close to the elections and not that he doesn't want anything to stop the election. So these are some of the steps, these are some of the options, these are some of the actions that our allies take in order to kind of frustrate a free and fair election, not to compromise the integrity of election. Let's even accept that the Bivas require internet and water. We have said it on this program before that we could approach some of the local internet service providers like MTN, like
Airtel, Etisalat,
or even Elon Musk,
Starlink.
You know, all you need is just a kind of small antenna on your table, on the roof of your house, or on the table where let's say you take it low to really be able to capture and transmit this via Elon Musk internet service, and they are very cheap. What have you? And it's only for just 1 day and another. So I agree that certain persons are not interested in the fair and fair claim that they are making another is just to ensure that they don't go out of business. Because if the elections were to be fair and fair, like a lot of patriotic Nigerians have said and stated and claimed that most of the people that we have in the political arena today will never be fair. They will be concerned with the dunghill of history and tradition, election wide.
And of course, we already know in the preparation to last election, obviously, those in charge of telecommunications in Nigeria appeared before the National Assembly to give their assessments, on the election in Nigeria. Now, Yakubu had further clarified that electoral bodies, the electoral body have been engaging telecommunication providers to address areas with weak or no network coverage, often referred to as blind spot, which further, explains what you just said. So in those areas of blind spots, which would have expected that in this 2027 there will be fewer, maybe just 5 or 6 places in the whole of Nigeria, it is still doable. And of course, with him now saying that even in those blind spot areas, by the time you leave those area, you'll get good internet connection, and of course, the whatever has been scanned can go through and to be received in the INEC portal. So definitely engagement with telecommunications should be able to do a lot, to go a long way.
I agree. And in fact, we are going to be empowering those telecommunication companies, especially the local ones, if we give them such a contract to provide a total internet coverage all over the country. Because by the time they buy equipment and what have you and all that means Nigeria would have found the scope of where internet facilities are available across the country, which I think would be good business for the internet service providers in the country. They will make more money, they will train people, they will acquire technology that is also going to be very, very useful for future uses. The army will be able to use it, the police will be able to use it, all the security agencies will benefit from it. You also find that even the banks and then the government, the local governments and all that, it will also expand their scope in terms of key to latest technologies in town. So that should be the direction in which I think we should be going. Also, let us remember that most of these technologies are compatible. When you look at the PS machine that's used, when you look at the Turaya phone and what have you, when you look at some of those small devices that we buy, modems and what have you, and all that, they are compatible. They could be configured to really be able to do the kind of thing that we ask them to do. You even know that, like I said before, with the lawyer, when we are doing the MBA thing and all that, is our ordinary handset that we used to vote. And then our handset will now send this, whatever you vote for, into the MBA servers and all that. And automatically, as a result, the voting, casting of votes is coming up. It is tabulating and also computing the voting that is coming under individual candidates as they are voted for and what. Because if an organization like the MPA is able to do this, why would a nation that is interested in a credible election be unable to really do all their resources at the disposal? Again, I want to raise one issue, especially as it pertains to the of the Senate, that they will want the manuals in the papers in the ECA and all that to be the primary source of information or data if there are places where there are no internet facilities. For God's sake, I disagree. I disagree with that and what have you. What should happen is that if there are disputes and what have you, there could be a fallback from comparing what you get from the electronic transmission of results to maybe the manual thing that is done at a different polling booth. And then we also assume that it is all the polling agents, all the political party agents at the different polling booths that are allowed to function. Most places where the party is very weak, where they don't have representatives, I mean, look at what happened to the Labour Party during the last elections and others. They couldn't muster the necessary resources to really deploy election monitors or agents to all the different polling booths and the country, because it's an expensive gambling. You now say, look, it is a manual thing, and furthermore, most of them were even taken away where they have agents by political thugs that have been hired and paid to take them away from this expensive polling booth and all that. I would think that the Senate is really not being sincere with what they are doing. Look at the voting pattern. Senator Abalide has called for individual votes and what have you that will be transparent, that could be captured live on national televisions and all that. But the Senate only that they say is a voice vote. And for me, when you use voice vote for that kind of very, very crucial assignment and all that, it is a mob action. It's merely a mob that's been asked to say nay or yes and what have you. What you have done. I should think the transparency of the Nigerian election is too important for us to subject it to this mob decision that the Senate really subjected whether yes or no to this amendment that was later carried out.
Now,
or that they pretended to have carried out.
Okay. Now, while it is commendable that the former INEC chairman has come out to make this clarification, on the other hand, we should be expecting critics to say, well, what moral ground do you have to say this? I mean, the last election wasn't exactly void of its controversy, with a lot of fingers pointing to him. What do you have to say to that?
Beautiful question, my brother. If you ask me another, and that is the hypocrisy that we find in this system another. After the men have delivered a fully organized and elections and what have you, he is now making claims to really exonerate himself from some of these things. You and I will remember Jega, naturally, from our life. People put in that kind of very, very important position, like Jega, like the man you just mentioned now, will always have pressures put on them by the executive arm of government and then some other people who are interested in not having a free and fair election in the country. It's for them to be able to stand their ground and say, look, this is what I think is right. This is what the Constitution expects of me. This is what the Electoral Act and the Electoral Regulation expects of me. And I'm going to do. If you don't want me to do it, you had better remove me and explain to the Nigerian why you are yanking me off at the last minute towards the conclusion of this elections and all.
He didn't do that, and as a result, he's been rewarded with an ambassadorial position.
Not many people have the quality to do that kind of thing. But we saw at least the guy do it another. I want to point out one thing to which I want you to go and take a look after. When Mahmood was announcing the elections and another, you could see that he was moody, he was not careful. If he had done a good job and then he could beat his chest that he has satisfied himself in accordance with the Constitution, the Electoral Act, and the INEC regulations and other, he wouldn't be looking that moody when he was president. If it's transparent, he could be seen on his face that there has been a lot of pressure put on him and other. I mean, when people were arguing and that there were issues with IREB and other, he didn't debunk that. He also claimed that they have issues. That was why they didn't use as one of the first conferences that he later did. So now for him to make a 40 face and begin to say that there were no issues with IRF and war, for God's sake, it's very, very unfortunate. Most importantly, too, I have always cried against or not being in support of people who have held successful assignments, going back to government to really be taking up political appointments with them. When you go back after you have done the kind of job that the former INEC chairman Yakub had done, or you are being a judge in an election petition, whether at the local government, whether at the state level or the federal level and all that, and then the government that you get a favorable ruling or judgment in favorable ruling to now begin to appoint you as ambassador and warrior. For God's sake, that is totally immoral. You remember President Muhammad Buhari also did that. There are some judges who gave him, I think, when he first contested, or was it when he contested against the second time or thereabouts, who gave favorable decision as to him winning the elections and all that. Immediately he became president, I think he make about 2 of them an ambassador and war army. And I think that was not polite at all. The message, that kind of a thing, turns out is that these persons could have or may have, so to say, or allegedly given the favorable decision that he gave in anticipation for the political appointment that is going to have from the whatever politicians eventually get to power. So we must insulate some of these sensitive officers to this kind of a thing happening. That is why, for example, the Constitution says, look, if you're a civil servant, you cannot engage in businesses. The only thing you can do is maybe agriculture and water and maybe teaching in some of these institutions and water, because it's assumed that if you're allowed to do business, you could as well register a company and then begin to award contracts to yourself to the exclusion of the new businessmen and who are laboring on a daily basis and all that to run goods and then decent businesses without compromising and all that. So we should be making such restrictions or regulations or law against people who hold this kind of sensitive assignments. So, you know, even if you have been president of Nigeria and what have you, and governor, there are certain things you cannot do when you leave office. If you have also been a judge, whether at the High Court and all that, you cannot thereafter come back to the bar and open a chamber and begin to run law practice, like somebody who has never been a judge and what. So there must be this kind of safety level, safety valve, safety guidelines to really insulate the Nigerian system from this kind of defender and then corruptive or possibly or potential to really corrupt people have very sensitive positions in the country.
Okay. Now, away from that, now 5 U.S. lawmakers have introduced a bill to the U.S. Congress seeking to impose sanctions on former Kano State Governor Rabiu Kwankwaso, the Miyetti Allah Cattle Breeders Association of Nigeria, and Miyetti Allah Kautal Hore for alleged violations of religious freedom. What's your take on that?
Well, honestly speaking, I have seen a lot of Nigerians clapping for the American lawmaker and the American government for some of the decisions that they are taking and some of the actions that they are proposing to take or may have taken, like bombing Nigeria and sending military back to Nigeria to come and assist us to arrest the virulent insecurity that we have all over the country and world. Unfortunately, I am not in tandem, or I really don't agree with this popular rhetoric that is all over the place. And my reasons are very, very, very straightforward and what. I ask you, look at the number of blacks that are being killed on a daily basis in America because of the color of their skin and what have you. Why is it impossible for the American state to really take steps? They also kill women discriminately in the U.S. Why is it impossible for them to really be able to take action and make laws that will make the life of the average black person and women a lot more safer in the U.S.? Why is it that they cannot legalize against the carrying of very lethal weapons and another? Does the man need an AK-47 or this sophisticated weapon to be able to defend themselves or to challenge whoever may have intruded into his space or try to burgle his home, hijack his car and another? You probably will need maybe an ordinary pistol with 4 or 5 rounds of ammunition, which could be trained for targeted shooting to disarm harm whoever may want to take your life. Why are we not moving in that direction? Furthermore, look at what has happened in Palestine. Muslims are being killed, and then children are so many children are now under the rubble in Palestine. Why are they not talking about it? Just yesterday, so I read a report from one of the papers that America gave very lethal weapons to the Israeli government. And we want to throw this bomb. A man will just disappear. They will melt. They will become ordinary sand. Wherever this thing, you not even see the ass because they say human body is ordinary water and flesh. And once that bomb is detonated and water, it's burned at such a degree that it evaporates whoever may be within the vicinity of those things. Why are they using that kind of lethal weapon against Muslims and children in Palestine? Isn't that hypocrisy? Furthermore, look around the world, look at history. Which country has the American people gone to and have been able to solve their problem?
Now,
there is none.
Now, while I
we
understand,
can solve our own problems internally. We could solve our own problems.
So why I understand with that, I've heard someone says, and I think it will echo a lot of how a lot of Nigerians view this. I mean, Donald Trump may not be a good president in the U.S., but if God will use him to intervene in Nigeria's situation, then why not?
I don't think so. They say, look. Whoever is going to close another person, you're going to look at what he's wearing to himself and all that. Even Donald Trump, his human rights record is not an appealing one. It is not something that one should care and all that. Look at his relationship with women. Look at his relationship with business associates and what have you. Look at what he has done to Venezuela to do. Look at what he's proposing in Greenland. Look at what is asking the European Union to do. Vis-a-vis the rest of the world, that they should farm themselves up and become another superpower who will begin to behave like an outlaw, like the American government is behaving now. The human rights records of America is appalling. That is the first country in the world that threw the atomic bomb on some other people, Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And I've also said now, they throw a bomb that evaluates people, that incinerates people. that makes them disappear from the surface of the earth.
What do you expect Nigerians to do? Because our leaders have not been able to solve this insecurity problem, and you know how long it took for the Nigerian government to finally proscribed bandit as a terrorist organization. If you take the United States to pronounce Miyetti Allah as terrorist organization and ban them from US and freeze their account, why shouldn't that be commendable despite his bad record in the US and his bad human rights record? I mean, this is not US now. This is about Nigeria and Nigerians to feel safe. Why should that be a bad thing then? Because obviously we can't depend on Nigerians to solve these issues for us.
That's another angle to it and what I feel. But you see, look at one of the persons they want to ban and freeze his account, Mr. Kwankwaso and all that. Then Mr. Farouk Perogi, an American scholar, has come out with a very informative article in Daily Trust, which was published in 2000 or in the year 2000 or thereabout, when he was working with a Daily Trust. He said, look, when they were going to start the Sharia in the north, that Kwankwaso was one of the last governors who subscribed to the Sharia, that he even tried all his possible best to make sure that the Sharia king was never brought to Kano State.
Where then he bowed to pressure and eventually made it in Kano State.
He did because of the ulamas and Kwara and all those people who put pressure. Look at, I will read to you what the man was reported to have said when pressure was being put on him to adopt the Sharia and then begin to punish people for blasphemy. The man was said to have, he said, during the launching of the Sharia, only the state government has the right to punish offenders. We should avoid taking the law into our hands. We should not intimidate those who are not Muslims and all that. If Kwankwaso were to be an Islamic fundamentalist or a Sharialist person and war deal, then he wouldn't have said that when the Sharia was being launched in Kano. It was also reported that he lost his election to Shekarau because the Islamic fundamentalists in Kano mobilized against him in order to make sure he didn't return to power because he was not disposed to the Sharia. When he was also running for the president, he made Benny Hausa and a Christian cleric. He's a running mate as a president. These are not the actions of somebody who is disposed to Sharia, the amputation of people and the killing of people for blasphemy. If you are punished, the American legislators are not on top of information and will begin to punish people who are not committed to Sharianization or to the killing of Christians and others. You could imagine what egregious other infraction would have committed. The law will say one thing, that it is better for 1,000 sinners to go scot-free than for one innocent person to be punished for a crime that he never committed.
So you think Kwankwaso is innocent of Islamic fundamentalism?
At least from the little that I have read about him and some of his utterances that I have followed over the years and others, he may not be as culpable as the American people are painting him to be. The truth of the matter is that this insecurity in Nigeria, like Abacha said, that when insecurity persists in any community, we should begin to finger the government and the allies in power because they have all the coercive apparatus of the state to live in the board, to deal decisively with whatever insecurity may have. Look at the way Obasanjo dealt with the OD people. Look at what he did, I think, was it in Benue or which other state? There was insecurity in those days when security men were killed and whatever. Immediately rolled the armor tanks and all that, and then almost leveled the whole community. And ever since that time and all that, the issue of insecurity in those parts, maybe until lately, it became a thing of the past. The truth of the matter, like most Nigerians are alleged, is that the abundant mineral resources in the northern part of the country are partly responsible for this insecurity. The politicians who ordinarily look at what happened with the protests in the National Assembly, as soon as Aisha Yusuf and Pozia went to the National Assembly to do the demonstration and all that, were thugs and killers and assassins, not deployed by certain politicians to disperse and then do a rival protest to neutralize what Aisha Yusuf was doing and all that. So some of these insecurities that we see, and the politician may be behind it. Even Nale, they may be there because once they hire these people, once they give guns to them and all that, after the elections have been concluded and all that, do they return their services? Do they retain their services? Do they begin to pay them salaries? And the man you have empowered with very lethal weapons and all that, who ordinarily find work to do with those weapons and whatever, then what stops us from not empowering the Nigerian policemen, the civil defense people, the army? Like we are empowering people in the National Assembly who have little or no value to our lives as a politician and all that. They wear very black, brown, shiny shoes, expensive wristwatches, very big babariga and all that, and debate for 1 or 2 hours in the day and all that, and then they begin to hire to earn very jumbo salaries and what have you.
Okay, so one may argue that the U.S. Don't just do things; they have insider information. You know, of course, we already know they have boots on ground as far as Nigeria is concerned. So one will argue that they have a whole lot of information. Now, one would say that why Kwankwaso, where just like you've alluded to, he was the last governor, but still. We have Zamfara, Sokoto, Katsina, Yobe, and Jigawa, you know, and Borno all started this before he came in. Isn't it possible that the reason why they're not going after these other people and they went after Kwankwaso is because the governors of these other states that started Sharia law don't exactly have as much political influence now as Kwankwaso have been the governor that started it in Kano State?
You see, it is not always true that the American people have all the details when it comes to certain issues and what have you. I will give you 2 quick examples. They went to Iraq and said Saddam Hussein had a weapon of mass destruction and what have you. And because of that, they overthrew his government. They also killed him.
We all know that was a pretense for regime
They also went to Libya. They also went to Libya and what have you, and lied against Muammar Gaddafi and all that. Has there been peace in that country? The answer is no. They intervene in some of these countries basically because of their selfish interest. They may also be. They have also been accused of being the one behind this Islamic fundamentalism that we have in the Arab war. When they saw at the time Saudi Arabia as a threat, they saw Saddam Hussein as a threat, they saw the Libyan man as a threat and all that. And then they empowered these Islamic fundamentalists, trained them, gave them weapons and war as it. And as soon as they killed Saddam Hussein and then destroyed some of those countries and all that, they again now withdrew from supporting these Islamic fundamentalists and what have you. ISIS and what have you, and then begin to fight them. Immediately they have achieved their discipline. Look, the challenge we have with insecurity in Nigeria could have been dealt with and lived in the box from the beginning. Look at when Ahmed Yerima and co started introducing Sharia in Zamfara State and all that. I think Obasanjo was in power and all that time. Obasanjo is passing with the Nigerian constitution. He could have stopped Ahmed Yerima and said, look, no, that is against the secularity of the Nigerian state. The Nigerian constitution prescribes that no religion should be adopted as a state religion, and that nobody could kill anybody for blasphemy and another. But because Obasanjo didn't want to confront the northern Muslim establishment and what have you, and Ahmed Yerima and what have you, he said that Sharia was a political thing. It will fizzle away. As it fizzled away, rather than fizzle away, other states in the north began to adopt the Sharia and then blasphemy and all sorts of and begin to overthrow the security of Nigeria. Then why has the government of Nigeria not been able to send a bill to the National Assembly and amend the constitution to reaffirm and reestablish the secularity of the Nigerian state? If we have done that, all this blasphemy and then killings and all that could have been drastically reduced.
Well, this is situations like these is why Nigerians are happy for any form of interference, i.e., the United States. Unfortunately.
At the end of the day, the consequences will be more grievous than the problem that is sent.
Okay, let's end it here. Let's end it here. We have to go, Barrister Kolawole. Thank you very much. We have so much to talk about, unfortunately.
Exactly.
Few time. Thank you very much for your time. It's always a pleasure.
Thanks for having me. Nigeria can solve our internal problems if we have a political will.
Okay. That was Tunde Kolawole, a legal practitioner and a current affairs analyst, talking to us right here on Voice of the People 90.3 FM, the news at 12. For a quick look at what's happening outside Nigeria, an 18-year-old has been named as the suspect in a shooting that killed 8 people and injured dozens more in British Columbia, Canada. Police said Jesse Van Russela was found dead at the scene after a self-inflicted gunshot injury. The motive for the attack is not yet known. 6 people were killed and at least 25 others were injured at Tumbler Ridge Secondary School. 2 others, the suspect's mother, aged 39, and stepbrother, aged 11, were found dead at a nearby home. Hundreds of mourners gathered to exchange comfort and moments of silence in Tumbler Ridge's main square and outside the British Columbia legislature in Vancouver on Wednesday night. The shooting at the nearby home occurred first, then the suspect went to the school, according to McDonald. The victims at the school were a 39-year-old female educator, 3 female students, all aged 12, and 2 male students, one aged 12 and the other 13. Authorities do not believe there are other suspects involved in the shootings. Police said they had attended the suspect's family home on multiple occasions over the past several years, with some calls related to mental health concerns. Authorities said Van Russela was born a biological male but identified as a woman. The suspect previously had a valid gun license and had since lapsed, McDonald said. Police said Van Russela had dropped out of a Tumbler Ridge Secondary School 4 years ago. And finally, on sport, tickets prices for the 2026 World Cup have skyrocketed on FIFA's official resale platform, with seats for many matches listed at several times their face value. Even though most tickets have only recently been distributed following the end of the main sales phase in January. Weeks after FIFA President Gianni Infantino warned that tickets made available on resale sites were likely to come with an exorbitant price tag, those fears have come to pass on World Football's own platform. As of Wednesday, the Category 3 seats the highest section of the stands for the tournament opening game between Mexico and South Africa at Mexico City's Azteca Stadium on June 11 was listed at $5,324 compared to an original price of $895. One Category 3 seat for the World Cup final on July 19 at East Rutherford, New Jersey, meanwhile was being advertised for an eye-watering $143,750 original face value of $3,450. The cheapest available ticket for the final on the resale site was listed at $9,775. In a few rare cases, though, some ticket prices have actually decreased. One ticket for Australia's group game with Jordan at the Levi Stadium in California, which hosted Sunday's Super Bowl, is being offered at $552 FIFA's resale site, a confirmation of what they have rallied against since the tournament draw in December. Yet, despite the steep price tag, sales remain brisk, reflecting a global clamor that has seen more than 500 million requests for tickets, according to FIFA. And just before we go, here again are our top stories. Ex-INEC chairman Mahmood Yakub says Bivas works offline on election day. Results can be transmitted once network is available. Kwankwasiya movement, APC and NNPP react to sanction of Miyetti Allah, Kwankwaso and Fulani militia in US bill. We also brought a story that 4 kidnapped victims regain freedom in Kwara. And the Senator Natasha and community chairman clash at Ajakuta Steel budget defense. On an international scene, police identify 18-year-old as suspect in Canada school shooting. And in sport, outrage as World Cup 2026 ticket hits $143,000 on FIFA's platform. And that's a wrap on the World News at 12 from Voice of the People 90.3 FM. I am Solomon of them. Do follow our social media handles at VOP903 FM. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at VOP903 FM. Good afternoon and thank you for listening.